Welcome to the Resilience Series. I'm Stephanie Weaver, the author of the Migraine Relief Plan and the upcoming Migraine Relief Plan cookbook. I'm interviewing a variety of people who deal with chronic conditions and live well despite them. And my guest today is Cynthia Toussaint. Cynthia is a nationally recognized advocate for women in pain. She's a writer, she's a breast cancer survivor, and she's the co-founder of For Grace, a nonprofit devoted to increasing awareness of the gender disparity in women's experience in the assessment and treatment of their pain, which any woman who's ever had pain can tell you is real. And she is based in Los Angeles, California. She's been dealing with chronic pain conditions for 38 years, and she's most recently a triple negative breast cancer survivor. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Stephanie. You just made me cry.
Oh, well, you're amazing. That's why I wanted to talk with you today. And so you began your life as a performer and dancer. And my experience of you is as a bubbly, happy, emoji sending friend. And yes, like more emojis than anybody I've ever met, which is awesome. So how do you find that energy when you're dealing with the kind of pain that you've been living with for close to 40 years?
Wow, so that's a great question. And I think that to a large degree, I was born with just great energy. If there were emojis in 1960, I would have come out with them, come out of the womb. My mother's joke is that I literally kicked myself out early on New Year's Eve because there was a party, and I didn't wait until my due date on January 1st. So I think a lot of it is I've always loved to have fun and laugh and smile. I also think that what we put out to the world is really a reflection of what we think about ourselves. And I've always had a really strong sense of self and self-esteem, and my mother really nurtured that in me. So I just think that we have a choice of looking at the world and welcoming the world with a smile or maybe a scowl. And I authentically choose to smile and laugh. I also am very social. So I think that helps have a really positive, attitude about life. And something that I forget about myself, but I think that it does partly answer this question. I absolutely refuse to be a victim. And I think that when we get caught up in victimhood, we put out a lot of negativity. And I just don't want to do that. So maybe that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I think so. How do you feel about being called a warrior? Because I know that language comes up a lot.
So I was called a warrior this morning. And it's huge in the pain world. And I personally hate the word because I feel like, well, first of all, words are so powerful. And when I get called a warrior, I feel like it means that I hate the part of my body that is sick. And that's just an innocent part of my body that is working really hard to get well. And so I just think that warrior is not the way, it's not the way that I want to approach my illness. And actually, when I got diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which you mentioned, I did not take it on the way my doctors told me to take it on. They told me that you're going to kill this thing, you're going to eat it up, you're going to, pardon my language, fuck cancer. And that's not my approach. Instead, I meditated every day, and as part of that, in prayer and gratitude, I spoke to my cancer every day, and I sent it so much gratitude and so much love, and I thanked it for the gifts that it gave me. And then I told it that I had made the decision that it was time for it to go, and it was so powerful for me. And in that way, I loved my whole body, and that's self-love, is unconditional love of your body and your mind, all of it. And I ended up with chemotherapy being a super responder, or what's called a super responder, and my tumor went away week 1. And I've not met an oncologist yet who has ever seen that happen before. So there is power in words, and we have to be really careful with the ones that we choose.
Yeah. And I'll just respond, thank you for that. And I'll just respond that the reason that I don't love it, the warrior word, is because someone can have all the intention in the world to fight whatever disease they have and still lose. And so framing it as a battle, it just sort of means, well, you didn't try hard enough if you ended up dying from this thing, or you were having pain. It's like you're not doing enough. And to me, it feels like a kind of another way of blaming the victim, but it doesn't sound like that. So it has this sort of backhanded angle to it that I just don't find helpful. And yeah, so that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I knew that you'd been called that a lot, and I was curious how you felt about it.
I'm so glad you asked that question.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things many of us deal with is what doctors like to call comorbidities. And while I hate that medical term, can you explain it for us and then share with how you deal with something new and big on top of other things that you've already been dealing with that are more of a chronic situation?
So I love the word comorbidities because it really helps me with my work, and it also helps me with my, with my life, with when I do see doctors. Um, there's comorbidities just means that you're a person who's dealing with more than one disease at a time. So I have 16 comorbidities last time I checked. And rather than saying to a doctor, I have complex regional pain syndrome, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, lupus, MS, RAO, it goes on and on. So it's just easier to say, I have 16 comorbidities. So that helps me. And a term that's just come out that you're maybe familiar with is COPC, or chronic overlapping pain condition. So maybe that's better for the palate. And when I get a new diagnosis, it's always hard. And my newest is POTS. I really didn't want to get POTS. But
tell us what that is. Remind people.
I'm just learning about it. It's like when your blood pressure goes up or down from moving. Like when I lean over and my POTS is bad, when I get up, it's like I'm really dizzy. I feel like I'm going to pass out because my blood pressure shoots really high up. So I don't have a severe case, but I have a feeling it's going to get more severe. And so I finally did get the diagnosis, which I wasn't excited about getting, but I usually know what I have before I go get the diagnosis. I honestly, I've dealt with illness for so long that I think I've been bedridden 10 years. I couldn't speak for 5 of those years. I think that I'm good at illness. I'm good at doing it. That sounds crazy, but you do, you build up your resilience and you find out how to deal with this illness and keep living well, as you're saying, keep thriving. So what I've learned is when I get a new diagnosis, it's good for me to grieve and be sad about it for a certain amount of time. And then I switched that to getting educated about the new disease and what's a part of me. And I become empowered and take control of my own health care. And what I've learned for me is that I need to stay away from Western doctors because they have really hurt me over the years, over the decades. And I go to an integrative doctor who doesn't do anything invasive, and mostly I rely on self-care. So that's what helps me.
Okay, so tell us about your self-care. We'll just jump to that because that was a segue there.
So there you go. So there's so much self-care that I rely on, including acceptance. I would say there's just so forgiveness, reinvention, gratitude, self-love, which I practice every day, mindfulness, meditation. I mean, then there are lifestyle choices like hydrating, eating a really healthy plant-based diet, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant diet, exercise. I love to move. I swim a mile 3 times a week. I do ballet, Pilates, and Feldenkrais 3 times a week. So all of that is just so healthy for me. Stress management, sleep hygiene. I could go on and on about that because I really learned how to sleep after 20 years of not getting restorative sleep due to chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And then new things that I'm doing, when I get really stressed out, I just stop and breathe deeply, and until I can really, rather than react to a stressful situation, I can intelligently respond and make a calm decision. So that really helps me. Also, I check in with my body 2 or 3 times a day, just tune out the outside world and ask what my body needs. And my body doesn't steer me wrong. So that really helps me. I remove toxic people from my life. And that's been very hard, but it's freed me. And also I listen to my gut, and I really trust the wisdom of my intuition. And that always leads me to grace. So it doesn't know everything. Sometimes it's wrong, but boy, it knows a lot. So
Tell us a little bit more about sleep hygiene, because I know a lot of people really struggle with that, and especially during the pandemic with all the additional stressors. I think I have terrible insomnia. Went to a sleep study, went through all that where, you've like got all these electrodes strapped to your body, and then people are watching you, and you're somehow supposed to fall asleep in that situation. And
sorry.
I just felt like, like there was a Doberman watching me and I was a steak. I just couldn't even understand how anybody fell asleep there. And but I did, find a program and I worked on it. But tell us about what you've learned about sleep hygiene, because I think that could be very useful for a lot of people.
Okay, so for about 20 years, I really didn't ever go through a prolonged period of getting restorative sleep due to fibromyalgia and due to chronic fatigue syndrome. And as you know, it's like a war all night, and you're up all night, every hour. I'd wake up about every hour. And then when I would get up, it was like, how am I ever going to face this day? I was always tired. And then when I got the cancer diagnosis, I learned that I had to be better at stress management. And so much of that was sleeping. And I thought, how is this going to be possible? But I know that you heal when you sleep. And I had to find a way. And so what I did was I started going to bed at 9 o'clock rather than 11 o'clock, even though my bedtime is 11 o'clock. And I unplugged. I just tuned out the outside world. I turned off my screens. I turned off my phone. And I just decompressed. I relaxed. I would meditate sometimes. I still do this, and I still sleep beautifully. I would spend time with my kitties, nothing like kitty therapy. I'd turn on talk radio. Sometimes I'd read, spend time with my wonderful partner for over 40 years now, John. And that did it for me. It was going to bed really early, and also turning off the news. If I listen to talk radio, it's too stressful of a time before going to bed to listen to the news. My integrative doctor told me to turn all of that off. So I didn't listen to that. Another thing is that I'm not really aware of everything that's going on politically, because it's not good for my health. I have John catch me up, but I especially never talk about things that are upsetting, the pandemic, or something political before bed, because that is my time to decompress and relax, and it works. And I really still don't, it feels like a miracle to me, and I don't really understand how it's working, but it is working.
That's great.
Yes.
One of the things that I learned was about just having a regular schedule, because when you don't sleep well, you tend to then just say, well, I'm up anyway, I'll just watch another show. And so I learned that, so I usually go to bed between 9 and 9:30 and read for half an hour, 45 minutes. And then and our room is really dark. We have a sound machine. So I have all these sort of rituals that also really help. So even when I travel, I have the same sound machine. I have an eye mask that I wear. And so there's that whole sort of reminder that, oh, this is sleeping time. It's not television time. It's not social media time. And that has really helped, getting up at the same time. And then, when I did have bad insomnia, the rule was you weren't supposed to lay in bed for more than like 15 minutes. And so if you were wide awake, you got up for a while until you felt sleepy, and then you tried again. And so that kind of, you have to go through sort of a training process if it's bad for you. And then the other thing too, because I have a very busy brain, is
Oh yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I would write, there's usually stuff that like my mind is spinning, and so I would write stuff down for my
right.
to-do list. So
Yeah,
then didn't have anything. Then I was like, oh, okay, I've written everything down. Like I don't need to work on this anymore. And so
right.
just learning those techniques, because I'd never heard of sleep hygiene. I didn't know, I thought I was like, do you take a shower before bed? What does that mean? But it just means having a good like system and process of self-care. So that's really helpful to hear. Would you describe yourself as being on a wellness journey? That wasn't exactly how I phrased the question when I sent it to you, but I'll ask it in that way.
Am I on a wellness? I'm definitely on a wellness journey. And do you want to know like
Yeah.
sort of how I got well? So this is a sort of a long story because when I was 21, I'm now 50, I'm about to turn 60 on New Year's Eve. Um, Back then, I felt like I was the luckiest person in the world. I was a singer, dancer, actor, and I just landed my dream job, a good part on a regular part on the TV show Fame. And I was auditioning for leads for major motion pictures. It was just like everything was in place. And like that, I injured my hamstring at the ballet bar. And everything changed negatively. I was suddenly with no identity. I was being abandoned really quickly, which is a big issue for me because my father committed suicide when I was only 7. And my family basically ran for the hills. They weren't able to be there for me, except for my wonderful mom and my wonderful partner, John. And I was being told that I was crazy by all of my doctors, and I was making up just awful things. I was told, "You're only a woman anyway. It doesn't really matter. Why don't you just shoot yourself in the head?" It got that bad, so abusive. I wasn't seeing any hope for a future, and I got a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and I started thinking about suicide on a regular basis. And I think that the biggest mistake I was making for so long was I was trying to somehow recapture the life that I'd lost.
Mm.
And nothing else was acceptable to me. And with a lot of time, I started moving toward acceptance of, as my surrogate father said, it is what it is. And I started really seeing that. And I could see that if I was looking for that other life, I would probably be, 85 and still looking. And so then I started doing HMO reform work. I think that maybe somebody started calling me, I don't remember. But I loved that. I was bedridden at the time, and my ballerina to bedridden story became known, and I had a lot of purpose. So I found purpose and meaning. So that was another big part of my wellness journey. And I loved being a spokesperson and helping other people. And so then I realized that I can reinvent myself. I can do things that I never thought I'd want to do. I have new passion. And that's when I started Forward Grace, because I didn't want anyone to suffer the way I had. Why should they? I wanted to help them, other people. And so that really helped me. And I realized that I was on this really horrible cycle of, I'm in horrible pain, and now I have depression. Now I'm more angry. I'm in worse pain. I was turning it around. And I'm happier. I'm doing things that I want to do, like I'm swimming again. Suddenly, I'm playing the piano. I'm singing, recording again. It seemed like miracles are happening in my life with this acceptance, purpose, and then reinvention. And so my life just got better and better. And then kind of sort of the last part, I think, of that journey was I finally left Western medicine because it was so abusive. I had a doctor who was calling me and bawling me out, saying that I had to do surgeries and I needed an intrathecal pump and spinal cord stimulators, and he'd hang up on me. And my body would be in so much pain. And I finally just walked away from that, and I switched over to integrative care. And then John and I wrote our memoir together, which was like the best couples therapy I think we ever could have done. We really understood what had happened to us. And somehow narrative therapy and switching to integrative care, I think put me into my partial remission, which was about maybe 12 years ago, and I'm still there. So what do you know? This is another thing that I would not have believed in, but it happened to me. So that's kind of my wellness journey
That's great.
up till now.
Yes, up till now. So, so my final question is, what do you want people to know about resilience?
So the first thing I want people to know about resilience is that it's not the enemy. We did, at For Grace, we did a conference about resilience maybe about 5 years ago. And we had really horrible blowback from the women in pain community. And as a result, we kept getting media because the media got very interested in this. And women in pain, and I see why they rightfully thought that because we were saying that resilience can help you with your pain, that we were somehow saying that your pain isn't real, it's in your head. It was just another way of, insulting them, putting them down yet again. And as you know, Stephanie, resilience, it's the opposite. It helps you when you have chronic pain. It helps you with that very real pain. And so resilience is a very good thing to have when you have pain, any other kind of disease, and for any hardship and challenge that comes your way. And last time I checked, none of us get out of this life alive, and we're all gonna face challenge. So that, and also it's so important to know that resilience it's a muscle, and we have to flex it and we have to build it. And resilience is a practice, and we can't just decide that we want to have it and then it's going to be there. We have to work hard at it, and I practice every day. And I think that everybody needs to. I think we'll all be stronger for it, and we'll be able to help everybody around us, because we have to help us first. We need to be able to bounce back, and we can with resilience.
Great, thank you. Cynthia, thank you again for being here today and sharing your story. You can visit forgrace.org to learn more about her work, and you can find her book co-written with John, Battle for Grace, a memoir of pain, redemption, and impossible love, on Amazon. Check out other episodes of the Resilience series on Facebook Watch, IGTV, and YouTube. And follow me, S. Weaver, MPH, to learn more about the book when it's coming out and all the good stuff about that, the Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook, which will be out in spring 2022 from Surrey Books. Thank you so much for watching today.